Podcast by Friday, episode 40. There's nothing that gives people confidence more strongly than somebody sharing a proven method with you and then helping you through it so that it works for you too. Podcast by Friday with Bill Griggs and Kingsley Grant. We help people to create their minimal viable podcast by taking bold action to defeat procrastination and to get their voices heard.
I'm Kingsley Grant.
And I'm Bill Griggs.
And you're listening to
Podcast by Friday. 40 episodes? My goodness, Kingsley Grant, this is going really fast.
You know, it's amazing how when you first started, you look back, you look forward and say, man, when would I get to episode number 2 and 3 and 10 and 20? And here we are at episode 40. And I'm excited about doing our 40th episode, especially when it has to do with money.
Oh, yeah. It's a good thing to talk about. Now, I'm Bill Griggs, and I am the co-host of the Podcast by Friday show with my good friend here, Kingsley Grant.
Hey, Bill, it's great being able to sit down with you once again and record this episode, because I find that having two minds, working on this, and the saying is 2 heads are better than one, and I find that to be so true in our effort here to present value and bring content to our audience.
Yes, working with you has been a real pleasure, and it has increased both my activity, my enthusiasm, and my bottom line as far as my accounts go, because having somebody who thinks things differently than you is always a benefit, particularly when you're working together towards common goals.
So true. And I think that's why, I find, as you and I have discussed, and we are in a sense, teaming up with you as a listener and saying, how can we help you achieve what it is both Bill and I are achieving, and our accountability, we are, challenging one another, we are pushing one another. And speaking about challenge, it happened to be our episode today, right?
That's a great segue. Yes, it is. We are talking about, in episode 40, how to make money with your podcast with a challenge. It's really cool what we've been doing in this series lately, where we're talking about how people are making money with their podcast, because it helps us to help you to see what is possible. You don't have to try all the methods that we've been discussing, but there are so many different possible ways of making an income from your podcast, and this is just one more, and the challenge has been really effective lately. You mentioned something about, Bill, to see what is possible. In the mornings, one of my morning routine, I try to listen to motivational or inspirational speakers, and just something to start my day in a positive way. And one of those speakers I've been listening to is, he's a late Earl Nightingale. Mm-hmm. And just this morning he was talking about the fact that, what it is, if your mind can conceive it and you can believe it, you can achieve it. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do here is that as you listen to us in this episode, we're painting a picture for you of what's possible. And hopefully your mind is able to capture what it is that's possible. As Earl Nightingale says, if you can conceive it and you can believe it as we go through this episode, we believe you can achieve it as well. So, Bill, let's start with then about defining the word challenge, because it's used many times in different contexts. And sometimes people, when we hear it, they may hear from us, they're wondering, okay, what do we mean by that? Well, in its simplest form, a challenge is a course or a guided experience, something that, someone is leading you through with the promise that at the end of that activity, you'll have achieved a specific result.
So when you're in that regard, if you kind of break that down a little bit more, Bill, because say a podcaster, right, as related to a podcaster, you're what I'm hearing you're saying that if they are take a course, how would you kind of put that in that
podcast in context in a manner where he or she who's listening right now would say, okay, this is something I can go after or do? Would there be another way to present that?
Well, there's several ways. I'll just give you some examples of podcasts that have used challenges, and that may help our listeners wrap their mind around it.
That'd be good.
There's an online marketer, Ed Dale. His name is Ed Dale, and he was the first one I ever heard about using a challenge to achieve a goal. And he had a course that he did over 10 years. Every year for 10 years, he did the challenge, and it was thechallenge.com, or I think it was thechallenge.co was the URL for his process. But what Ed's whole thing was, he wanted to build a group of people together who were going to go through the process. And his process was, he was going to show you how to make $1 on the internet. And that was the goal in 30 days. So his challenge, had a specific goal to make $1 and a specific time frame, and he was guiding you through it. Now, he taught you step by step how he was going to do that through the use of common tools that were out there, and common software, and common social media platforms and websites and things like that. And he walked you step by step. On day 1 you're doing this, on day 2 you're doing that, and he showed you. And every year that I did the challenge, I made money. So
wow,
yeah, and it was usually a lot more than $1.
And the reason I ask you about that contest, because I was going to refer to another contest that kind of bring home this idea of the challenge, because I was involved, my wife and I, in a 10-day challenge where it was about weight loss, and we see it many times, and it was a green smoothie challenge. And so what happened was that this lady who put this on, she had hundreds of thousands of people who participate in this challenge every so often. And she would build a buzz around that. And because I was working in tandem with my wife, but also with other people, it really helped me to stay on course for that 10 days. And it's not a diet, it's really a cleanse. But in that 10 days, I was able to lose a number of pounds of weight. Actually, I lost like 11 pounds in 10 days. And being able to maintain that by using the same drink, the same smoothie almost every day. But what I noticed is what has helped Bill so incredibly so is that the community that was formed there. I believe the community is a key element to every challenge. And like you said earlier, whenever it's been done with a number of people and they're all working toward a particular goal that they've agreed upon, then I believe it's stronger, and you're able to get to where you want to go much faster. So that's what I think about when I hear challenge.
Mm-hmm. And, the whole part about the community is, I actually think that you're more likely to succeed when you're doing it with others, because you have this kind of accountability thing and this kind of dare going back and forth. I mean, I started this podcast on a dare. It's the peer pressure that helps you in some cases with these challenges. When it gets down to the hard work and things are hard and you're like, oh man, I want to quit. And somebody in the group, says, hey, come on, you can do this. Here, come on, I'll help you. And that's the whole cool thing about it.
And that's really, I think, as you're listening as a potential podcaster or a podcaster, that you may want to consider as we go through this, because I believe even as we think about why you might want to do that and why we have done that, and we kind of touched on that briefly just now, the community support you have, it really increases your chance of success. So that's one of those reasons I believe why you want to consider a challenge or do a challenge is for the support that you get during the challenge process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are many other reasons why you would want to do a challenge. For instance, through a challenge in your podcast, you could actually build up a list of email subscribers. And as you know, Kingsley and I are very much, we believe very strongly that building an email list is a very important part of building any online business. Because without a way to contact your people, your tribe, your followers, you've really got no business.
I think Pat Flynn, one of the geniuses, or one of those premier person in podcasting world, have said he wished he had started an email list much earlier in his journey than he did. And now he has a huge list, but what would have happened had he started much earlier? But also what I've seen him done is build a huge community around this. And it's almost like these are fans, people who will, the whole idea of 1,000 true fans. He has, of course, multiple thousand true fans. But these people are there, and that has come through. He's also done challenges, 5-day challenges, 10-day, 30-day challenges. I've been a part of his challenge as well. And I see how effective that is in not only getting email subscribers and support, but also the community that's formed. You feel like you're a part of something, and you're like a brotherhood, sisterhood kind of thing, So it's really incredible.
Mm-hmm. I felt like I knew Pat long before I actually met him. Just from the things that he was sharing inside of his podcast and, with his community that he had built. It's very impressive to think that this guy who got laid off from an architectural job could build a $5+ million online business around his podcast, and that he's so open and transparent that he shows us exactly how much he's making and from what sources, and he tells us how to do it ourselves. I mean, that's, to me, that's really serving. So, the community that Pat built around his podcast through the many challenges and the many other methods is a very strong community. And, that's what you want to build for your podcast audience, a very strong community.
And I think once you've found that, you've formed that community, it's now become something a no-brainer, because those people know, like, and trust you. You can create products because your goals in there is, of course, the email is to connect with people, to build relationship, but also to market your products, because you now have a people who will just like, whatever you have, they're saying, give me, I want that because I believe in you, I trust you, I like you, I know you. And so you can market your products more effectively in that community. So I think it's a great idea to have to create challenges, as you described about Ed earlier, Bill. I mean, he wasn't doing it for his health. He knows it works, right? So he would say, hey, let's have more and more challenges, because it gives you a chance to get a bigger audience and a bigger community, but also to, the truth be told, to market your products.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And besides marketing your product, a really cool part of having a challenge is that it helps you to achieve your goals. Now, in your case with the smoothie challenge, Kingsley, your goal was to lose how many pounds?
10 pounds.
10 pounds. And how many did you actually lose?
11 in that 10 days.
11. So you achieved the goal that you set out through your challenge. And, I'm sure, everybody involved lost weight during the challenge. And that's the point. If you work on it together in a systematic way through these challenges, you can achieve a goal, specifically if it was a realistic goal. At the beginning, if you had set out to lose 100 pounds in 10 days, you might have had a problem. But,
yes.
But that, that's why you've got to set a good goal in the challenge. So, there are other reasons as well that you would want to do a challenge. For instance, to gain exposure for your podcast. Because folks see you in motion, they're going to come over and look. The human brain is made up of several brains, actually. There's the old crocodile brain, which is the one that developed first, inside you, that its whole purpose is to keep you safe. And so it's a watchdog, and it looks for things. And what that brain can process is things in motion, things that are sitting still, it ignores and starts looking for other things that may be a threat. But when your brain, your crocodile brain, sees something in motion, it pays attention to it. And when your challenge is out there in front of your market and you're doing your thing, you're in motion and people notice, and that helps you get exposure.
Yeah, and I think also, you're right about that, because you're looking around, and I find that in the community, we were looking around and seeing other people posting and showing what they're doing and what is done, how they're losing weight and different things. And so you feel like you're watching, and so things are in motion, and you're moving along with everyone else. And I think also what it does, Bill, in the person who was leading the group, like in the case of Pat or this other lady I mentioned, they're just showcasing that, hey, their expertise. Obviously, we are following something because we believe this person know what they're talking about, because they have social proof. They've been there, done that, and have others who have said, hey, I've followed their method and it's worked. So you are thinking about how can you showcase your expertise, and what better way than to have that community of people who know, like, and trust you, believe in you, to say, hey, you know what? It's almost like they're thinking the top of mind awareness. The first person that comes to their mind about that topic is you, because you're always before them, and you're just, in a sense, like, to them, that person that they look up to. They look for, as Bill mentioned about the movement. What next? What should I do? So you really are positioning yourself for some success by creating challenges, And I think that the thing is that, Bill, sometimes because of how I'm not sure what a person who's listening right now, where they might be in their podcasting journey, they might be wondering that, okay, all right, I get it. So when should we start this? When should I start this? Do I start right away? Do I wait? What might be a good way to help them as they're listening, or him or her listening, to think about when can they start a challenge, or should they start one? And now we've kind of, I hope to convince you should start one, but when should you start one?
Well, there are many times when it's appropriate to start a challenge. Probably the most obvious is when you have a product or service that you want others to know about and to participate in. When you found that secret sauce, something that works, and you want to teach that. I know that when I do podcast episodes in my other podcast, CNC Router Tips podcast, where I'm showing people how to do something, those are far more popular than the ones where I'm just talking about something or talking with something. So this is the time when you've got something that you want people to learn and something that you want them to participate in. That's the best time to do a challenge, in my opinion.
I think going back to Pat, I think so much this point is made, Bill, because I know that, when he has created a product or have a product, and, he's so excited about it. He doesn't want to keep it to himself. He wanted to let us know about it and share that. And I think what it has also done, Bill, is giving that person a chance to now expand their email list, right? Mm-hmm. So they have one in place. They began to get people signing up initially. But here's what happened. Imagine now you have a new product coming out. The buzz is being built. They're telling their friends and their family and their foes and whoever about this product or about you. And they want to know, how can they get in on this? Because, motion leads to emotion. So everybody's like, tell me how. What can I do? Well, hey, just sign up here, give your name and email address. Boom, you got it. So one more person have been added to the list. So it gives you a chance to grow and expand your list from where it is to wherever you want to get it. So I think the great opportunity when you want to grow a list, say, hey, you know what? Maybe a challenge. And full disclosure here, Bill, that's where I'm at right now in my other podcast. I want to grow my email list, and I make no bones about that. There's no question about it. I want to grow the email list. And I've been thinking about, how can I expand what I have? And when we were preparing this episode here, I'm thinking, why not do a challenge? Mm-hmm. So guess what? Yours truly will be working on in the very near future is a challenge. So because it works.
Now this is for your new podcast,
My Biz from Home podcast. Yes,
My Biz from Home podcast. So you're going to do a challenge for your group. One thing that's really cool about that, not only will it give you the chance to grow your mail list. But I'm betting that when you do that challenge, you're going to increase the participation inside your group. The folks are going to, pop up and start talking with each other and posting their results and telling you about the parts that they're having trouble with and the parts that they're, really rock their world. And they say, woohoo, we succeeded. Look at that. That's what's really cool about having a challenge, because it really gets your community hopping.
Yeah, and I love also, Bill, because again, maybe it's just being selfish in this regard, but I'm putting that out there. I'm being open here. It also gives me a chance to get documented results. People can tell me their testimonials, how it worked, give me feedback. I can make it better. So I think there's so many pluses that can be gained from a challenge, because now their feedback is helping me make the product, make the whatever I'm working on. I fine-tune that. So really it's a great way to get what it is you're working on and help your community, allow your community to help you make it better for what they want.
This is a little bit of a side topic here for me, but when I first got started online, I created a business that was selling model airplane stuff, and we've talked about that in other episodes, but I had success in this. Is the early 90s and everything, and then I stopped doing that business, and I always wondered, will I be able to duplicate what I did? Can I catch that lightning in a bottle again and do it? This is the section of our show where we would normally pause for a word from our sponsor. Now, if you would like to be that sponsor of the Podcast by Friday show, and you have a product or service that you feel would be of benefit to new entrepreneurs starting their new podcast, then contact us at podcast@podcastbyfriday.com, and we'll see if you'd be a good fit. When I first got started online, I created a business that was selling model airplane stuff. I had success in this. This is the early 90s and everything, and then I stopped doing that business, and I always wondered, will I be able to duplicate what I did? Can I catch that lightning in a bottle again and do it? Using the things that I learned that first time around, I was able to do it again. And this is the same thing with the challenge. Like if you've figured out something that's been working for you, and you want to teach about that, having a challenge is a great way to help you duplicate the results that you got before and maintain them, and to share with others how you did it so that they can do it, because there's nothing that gives people confidence more strongly than somebody sharing a proven method with you and then helping you through it, so that it works for you too. That happened with the Amazon affiliate stuff I was doing. Somebody showed me how they were selling products on Amazon FBA, and I duplicated their process, and it worked for me too. So, using a challenge is a fantastic way to do that.
Bill, you mentioned, and I'm just kind of looking up here, you mentioned earlier about the fact that, and I just want to, as a side note here, about building model airplanes and about what your first business was. And if you're interested, as you're listening, say, well, I did an interview with Bill on my show, and I would love for you to hear the story, because I think it was a phenomenal story, as Bill shared about how he, when he first started. So we have a link in the show notes at the episode that we did, that you can go and hear his full story there. And it's episode number 25. So it's startabusinessonlinefromhome.com/025. Startabusinessonlinefromhome.com/025. And really, that was an incredible interview that Bill did, because he outlined and shared with you how he built that business. So if you want to learn something, I call it was a master class. I call it. He gave a master class. So if you want to hear how he laid that out in a much more expansive way, go there, and we'll have the link again in the show notes where you can hear more about that. So I really think that's a great way for you, as you're curious in listening. I want to make that available to you.
Oh, thanks, Kingsley. I'm honored that you call it a master class. I think that it was a very fun episode to record for you. You made me feel very comfortable, and it was nice. So, moving back to our topic, I was just thinking about this. Now we've been talking a lot about what is a challenge and why people when should people do a challenge, but it brings to mind to me how do we go about doing a challenge, and is there more than one way that the listeners could do a challenge? And I think we should maybe spend a little bit of time and talk about how you could go about doing a challenge.
I think that's a great thing, because yes, we have kind of hopefully convinced them and shown them the benefits of that. But I think the first thing you've got to do is choose a topic.
Amen.
That's how you've got to be able to know what it is you want to challenge around. Like going back to the similar challenge, that was a very clear topic that was put before us with Pat Flynn's challenge. A clear topic: how to get started a podcast in X number of days. Clear topic was, you didn't have any ambiguity as figuring out what might that be. So you have to be clear on what it is you want to build a challenge around and start with that.
Yeah, and when you choose your topic, you're going to apply the same things that we've been teaching from day one when it comes to choosing your podcast subject matter, for that matter. Your topic should solve a problem that people are having. That's the simplest way to choose a topic. Find something that is a pain point for your listeners and solve it. That is the easiest way to choose a topic. If you remember that in any endeavor you're doing, whether it's making a business, whether it's starting a podcast, whether it's putting out an email list topic in your newsletter, whatever, if you solve a problem for people, they will be so happy and grateful. And that's,
and I agree that, because my problem was I wanted to lose weight, and what she did was, her challenge was to provide a solution to my problem. And you know what? That's what I wanted, and immediately it was a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. I saw this as the solution I wanted, and I went for it. And I think what's so cool about that as well is that it was given a date. So it was a 10-day challenge starting on a certain date. So in my head, I did the calculation. If I started on, say, it was a day, I think the 5th of February, or whatever month that was. So I know on that day when it starts, I had 10 days. So the 5th to the 15th, I have that frame of time. It's not too long. It's manageable. And so that helped me work towards that and realize it's not a lifetime commitment right away. It's a quick burst of energy, get started, and then maintain that. So that was very important for me, that the date was given, and then how long it would last was very helpful in me even signing up.
Yeah, that's the one thing when you're doing these challenges, you want a specific start and end time frame. The goal that you set when you chose your topic has to be one that is achievable in a short period of time. That you can measure the results, and that you can work together, and in a step-by-step fashion to achieve. And it's got to align with your podcast's purpose. For instance, if Kingsley and I, our podcast is Podcast by Friday, teaching you how to build your minimum viable podcast, in 7 days, basically. That's the whole thing that we're about, teaching you how to do it really quick. If we were suddenly to do a challenge on how to sell products on Amazon FBA to raise $10,000 in 30 days or something like that, that doesn't exactly align with what our podcast is all about. Sure, selling stuff on Amazon is a nice method of making money, but that's not what we're about. Our topic should be something that
it's related.
That's related, and that we can achieve in a specific period of time. So, I'm kind of rambling here, but it brings to mind one other thing, Kingsley, and that's when we do these challenges, we've got to identify and outline specific things that happen in a specific time frame during that challenge. So, we know what we're doing each day of the week. And
yeah, because I think it allows you to your progress. You're kind of measuring your progress. You know you are halfway there, and what should be done. Like, for example, again, this smoothie challenge was in halfway through our 10-day, you should have lost 5 to 6, maybe 4 to 6 pounds for most people. And so you could weigh yourself if you wanted to. And the excitement, the buzz around that, man, day 5, day 6 is going to come. If I go on the scale, I'm going to lose 4 to 6 pounds. Wow, that's a great way to keep the momentum going, And so everyone was kind of excited about that. And every day you had a different kind of thing to do as far as a drink we had to make. So it mixed it up. It was not just one bland, everyday, same old, same old. Something new was introduced for us that kept things, which really, as you're listening here about, and Bill mentioned this briefly about, like I said, a challenge. We're going to make a huge announcement in a few minutes about what we want you to be a part of that we at Podcast by Friday is going to do. So hang in there. We're going to share with you an opportunity to see what it's like and possibly be a part of that as well. So we'll tell you in a few moments. But that was so important, Bill, that we have the, every challenge allow each person who's involved to know that they can measure and they are feeding off another person, but we are giving them, or the person who's leading the challenge is giving them precisely what they can do and not left by themselves to figure it out day by day, right? Mm-hmm. And then what I like also that we have stated, or what, again, going back to the challenge I was a part of, they state what the results will achieve. So here I was, day 5, day 6, they're telling me, Kingsley, if you do everything, and this is the key part, if you do everything as outlined, you will lose 4 to 6 pounds by day 5. Mm-hmm. Man, do you think that charged me up or what? I mean, I was like committed because I wanted to go on the scale on day 5 and see if it worked. And guess what? It worked.
Fantastic. I remember when I did the challenge from Ed Dale, we were midway through, and part of his challenge was to build up social media contents and social media contacts. And when I started, I had no followers on Twitter, but by the middle of this thing and using his, I know Twitter may be not as popular as it was at the time that I took the challenge, but I ended up with a few hundred followers who were actually into what I did by the end of this challenge, and they were willing to at the end buy the thing that it was that we were selling as a result of that. And I'm not going to go into what it was because Ed changed what the item was that we were focused on. Every year he did a challenge. So it was a different thing, a different modern thing, something that was hot, right then and there. So, whether it was putting out a magazine on iTunes, which, iTunes had a new store. That was one challenge one year. Another year it was to put out an ebook, well, we did that, So it was kind of cool. I learned a lot of basic skills. But I knew what my result would be at the end because he told me up front what that was. And here's another good example of a challenge online that folks can go and check out. Google had an online challenge. They don't do it anymore, but originally when Google got started, they wanted people to create websites and to create online content and things like that to build up online presence. And so Google had an online challenge. It was google.com/online challenge. Isn't that great SEO right there? Search engine optimization, using those keywords. Anyway, you can go to that URL today, and we'll have a link to it in the show notes, and check out how Google walked you step by step. They helped you choose your topic. They helped you set the date that it was going to end. They outlined what you were going to do on each day of their challenge, and then they told you what the results would be at the end of it. And it's a good model to look at and to follow.
I'm working right now, Bill, on the 21-day challenge I mentioned earlier, and I find that as I do the recording right now, I have every so often, every day, something else to do. And so I'm telling every person who will be involved what it is they should be doing on this day, because it helps them to guide, to measure. And also, I think we find that it's give a person a chance to know, where I'm going, where I'm headed, and what it is I'm doing to get there. We have also, one of the books I've really found to be very helpful is Chris Gillible's book, Side Hustle. And because he have a 29-day challenge, or 27 days, 29 days, right?
Yep.
27 days.
Yep.
And in the book, he outlines for you step by step what you should be doing on what day. And that's a great way to learn about challenges as well, because he's outlined it very, very specifically, which I've found to be very helpful. But I want to, before we kind of give our audience something we want them to do as a result of this episode today, you said something which I think is very, very important. I didn't want to gloss over. You said that when that Twitter thing was done and you had the few hundred people who signed up, all of those people were, they were like-minded. It's not like you're pulling people who don't know what it is you're talking about. So, and that's very important. So you have the kind of persons in the challenge all on the same page. It's not like you have people on the fringes who said, why am I here? I have no idea. No, you know who you're talking to. You know who you're working with. You know why they're there. You know all of those things. So you don't have to guess and worry about putting stuff out, because they know they came in as a result of that challenge. So all you do is continue to do things around that subtopic matter that can help them be involved and connect with you and build a relationship and all those good stuff that happens as a result of that. So that was very important, what you mentioned earlier, and challenges do just that.
Yeah, and it all goes back to the first step in this section that we're talking about. It's choosing your topic, because the topic that you're choosing that solve that problem and solve that issue, the people who want that, they're your community, and that's why that works, because you're tying it all together. It just goes right back to the beginning. So our audience wants to get their podcast launched, plain and simple.
Yeah.
So, I think, Kingsley, we should, let our listeners, the folks who are like-minded with us, know about what we've got planned.
Yeah, I think it's so important, because we cannot leave you hanging after all of this build-up, all this wonderful, valuable content, and just say, okay, bye. No, we can't say that. We're saying to you, hey, we've got exactly what we have talked about, and we have a challenge called the next 7 days. We want you to be able to want to do all the things we've outlined: community, support, day by day what to do. And we're saying in the next 7 days, when we launch this eventually, and we want you to be a part of this. We have not yet set a date, because we want you to be notified about when we're planning this whole thing, and you are the VIP. We want you to get the first person to know what it is we're doing and when we're starting this. So we want you to go to podcastbyfriday.com, podcastbyfriday.com/7 and the word days. So it's 7 days. Podcastbyfriday.com/7 days, and sign up to be notified when the challenge starts. We cannot wait for you to be a part of this.
Yep. And we're going to take you step by step through the process, and our goal at the end of that is going to be, you're going to have a podcast out there and working. If you've already got a podcast, you can start a second one, and you can do it effectively in this 7-day challenge, and we're going to help you. We're going to guide you through it step by step. So go ahead, go to podcastbyfriday.com/7 days and sign up to join.
And as Bill said, even if you have a podcast, you have never done a challenge, this is a great way to see what a challenge would look like as we model to you and before you what it is you also can emulate and do your own. So even for that is a great reason to also sign up. So again, go to podcastbyfriday.com/7 days, the number 7 days, and then be on the list to be notified when the challenge starts. And let the challenge begin.
Fantastic. We've been talking today about challenges and how you can use them to grow your podcast. We talked about the various methods where you could choose your podcast challenge topic. You can set a date for how long it's going to take and how long it will last. You can outline the practices that you used for each day of your challenge, and you can state the results of what you will achieve by the end of the challenge. We've basically given you a formula for success on challenges. And if there is one thing that you want to check out to get an idea of it, there's some fantastic books. Like we mentioned, Chris Guillebeau's book, The Side Hustle, how to go from idea to income in 27 days. Well, that book just is like a treatise on challenge. So you get the idea, follow through, guys. Podcast by Friday. Take bold action to create your minimal viable podcast today. Check out new episodes at podcastbyfriday.com or on iTunes or Spreaker.